Here's how I found my favorite psalm. I was talking to a friend about the concept of the beautiful name of Jesus as found in some worship songs and hymns, specifically whether it is taken directly from the pages of the Bible or if it's a more recent post-biblical artistic concept. I couldn't find it in my cursory Bible Gateway searches, so I asked my Christian friend. She couldn't think of any verses, but did recall passages that mention the beauty of the Lord. She also happened to mention Psalm 45, which I'd all but forgotten, honestly. I remembered it was quoted in Hebrews 1:8, and so I grew curious about its original context. It is apparently a wedding or a love song devoted to either a specific king or, more generally, to Israelite or Judahite kings. Verse 10 and 11 specifically lend evidence to this, admonishing the bride to forget her people and her father's house and to let the king be enthralled by her beauty. The most interesting verse to me, though, is verse 6, which specifically calls the king God, Elohim. Your throne, O God, it says. An alternate reading of this verse is your divine throne, but that doesn't sound like much of a difference to me. The Christian author of Hebrews clearly interpreted this as a reference to Jesus Christ. Who else would or could legitimately be called God in the Christian mind, after all? Christians might also cross-reference the bridal aspects to New Testament verses about the bride of Christ, and so see the psalm as a clear reference to Jesus Christ. I would say, though, that Psalm 45 looks like it's capturing a unique look into how Israelite or Judahite kingship was envisioned. It was not uncommon for kings in the wider region to be considered divine, after all. So is it surprising that they would show up here in the Bible? Verse 6 is not the only place where the king is called Elohim either. Verse 4 or 3, depending on how the verses are divided, has the exact same word, though it is often rendered hero or mighty one in many translations. Is it a remnant of an old understanding of the divinity of the line of kings, one which later authors and redactors scrubbed from the rest of the biblical texts? A one-off thing with a specific king or his underlings attributing divinity to him? I don't know. Maybe it was purely ceremonial, with the king taking on the role of a god just on his wedding day. In any case, it looks clear to me that the psalmist was saying that this human Israelite or Judahite king was a god, one who had ancestors and royal descendants, one who would die and then would need the psalmist to perpetuate his memory and his worship throughout the nations. That's why it's my favorite psalm, because it represents what dogma does not allow so many Christians to see: the original intent and meaning behind the various texts of the Bible. How many Christians read this psalm and think it only ever referred to Jesus Christ? How much textual richness and history is lost on believers because they refuse to let the texts speak for themselves?